In our family, we've kind of been struggling with this a little bit. My in-laws are definitely failing in the fourth quarter of life, and as the year has gone by, they have needed more and more help. And about 2 months ago, my mother-in-law was hospitalized for a little bit because she had a health problem in addition to her mental health difficulties. And as part of that conversation, the social worker from the hospital came along and basically said to us, your mom can't go home because your father can't provide her with the care and support that she needs at home. So all of a sudden they've gone from being a couple that could sort of coexist and work together between the two of them and get things done to the point where she's out of the picture and just he can't support her. And so it becomes a question of where do you go next? Because now all of a sudden you can't reintroduce them easily back into the home and then somewhere else. You've got to help with that transition. And so it's kind of getting thrown in the deep end of the pool in the 11th hour. And so fortunately, we know Stephen and Martha, and they are in a business that helps families work through these things, kind of assess the needs, kind of work through the budgeting side of things, and then ultimately help with getting people in a safe and caring environment. And I thought it would really be beneficial to you all to hear from them tonight because they've added such value in our family to help with my mother-in-law. So I'm going to switch it over to Stephen and Martha.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening. We're happy to be here. And we're actually clients of Bernie. We walked into his office a couple years ago. That's how we met him. And he helped us tremendously during our estate planning and also planning for the future. So we were happy to work with him a couple months ago to help Susan's mom. So we do own a business. We've been doing this now for a few years. And we got into the business because of my dad. And I actually went through the same thing that Bernie was talking about, a little bit slowly, because he has Alzheimer's, so he progressed a little bit slowly. So I took care of him for a little while, moved him into my home. But it got into the point where I could not give him my life and my kids. We have 3 kids. That's my husband, by the way, Stephen Chung. I forgot to introduce you. Sorry. That's Stephen. Anyway, we have 3 kids together, and our household was extremely chaotic. We have our lives, we have our 3 kids, we have our 2 parents now living with us, one with moderate Alzheimer's. And I began the process of actually figuring out, where do I put my dad? What do I do with him? And I was overwhelmed. There's so many different things out there, and if you just even search the internet a little bit and just give your name and put your phone number in there, you'll be overwhelmed with the amount of phone calls that you get in from all these different homes and communities, and you just don't know what to do. So we decided to start this company called Senior Living Advisory Group that works with family to help them understand what are the options out there? How do you see how do you work around this area that is really becoming extremely large and a huge business? But when you're in that situation and you have to make those decisions with your loved one, it's very difficult and very emotional. So we are sort of the bridge between the family and everything that's out there. So our purpose today was really to provide some education at a very, very high level to you guys. Give you a big picture of how to look at the different options that are out there. What are the services that are included in all of these different options? How much does it cost? Sort of a price range, and when is it really time to start thinking about it? Especially for you, but for your parents, for a loved one that might be in that situation. And then what do you do to sort of get ahead of the game and plan a little bit ahead? So that's our agenda for today. Do you have anything to add? Okay, good. Okay, so senior living. What many envision when you talk about senior living is this. It's institutional, cold, hospital setting. You know, it's a place where you really don't want to spend any time in if you're given a choice. And it's a place that you really don't want to spend the rest of your life in. But in reality, that is really not the case right now. It used to be probably about 20 to 30 years ago when we didn't have a whole lot of options. But now, the industry has evolved because we are growing older and older and older and getting sicker and sicker and sicker. The industry has evolved in such a way that there are many more options. So, first of all, you probably all heard about active adult community senior apartments. These are generally called 55-plus communities, where anyone that's 55-plus can actually move in, have a nice life, but it basically is just living with people like you. You still have your own place, you are responsible for everything, you take care of your own things. The next one is what is called independent living, and this is really the lingo of the industry. So independent living is, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but independent living is basically what it sounds like. You're independent. You can still do things yourself. And then we get into the realm of assisted living, and there's options there in terms of communities and care homes, and we'll talk about that. Then there's the dreaded memory care. And what is that? So we'll talk a little bit about that. That's for people that are more cognitively impaired. Skilled nursing facilities, or SNFs. And then finally, continuing care retirement communities, or CCRC. So these are all lingos. This is all the language that people speak out there in the industry. And we're going to talk about each of these one individually and just give you a high level of what each one is.
I think the important thing to note, the distinction is below here is all covered under Medicare. Part of this is covered under Medicare, part of it is not. Everything above here is not covered under Medicare and is all either private pay, and for those who do not have the necessary means, there is Medicaid, right? So this line below is all skilled or in the medical realm, and the things above that are non-medical. So I think that's the important distinction.
Yeah. Okay, so what is independent living? And there's a picture there of a cruise ship, and that's basically, when you think about independent living, that's basically it. It is fun, it is activities, it is being with people of your own age group, but it does offer some services that you do not get in a regular 55-plus communities. For example, it has meals, so you don't have to worry about cooking. They take care of all of your maintenance, so everything that may go wrong in your apartment, everything's taken care of. So it's stress-free living. If you're tired of taking care of a home, if you're tired of taking care of maintaining your home, if you're tired of the cooking, but you're still functionally well, you still drive, you still, are cognitively, you still do everything you do every day, but just want to simplify your life, then independent living is probably a good place for you. So what does independent living include? It includes your apartment, and these are generally big communities, 80, 100 apartments or so. They're beautiful. Some of them are gorgeous. I visit them all the time, like, I want to live here. They're amazing. Utilities are included, so everything is included in the rent. And the apartments, it could be studio up to 3 bedrooms. So they're really, if you're simplifying your life, you could actually get a nice big apartment. Weekly or bi-monthly housekeeping is included, so they actually come into your apartment and they clean your apartment. They do your linen and towel service for you, transportation with a certain mileage of the community, repairs and maintenance, meal package, and they usually do include a small kitchen. So everything's done for you. You just enjoy activities. You go to the museum, you go play bingo, you just enjoy yourself. So what are the costs? There's monthly rent, there's a one-time community cost that you pay in the front, and the range of independent living varies. It could go anywhere from $1,500 a month to upwards of $5,000 a month. This is all private pay, so this comes out of your own funds. It is not regulated, so no government body looks into these independent communities to make sure they're providing the services they're provided. They're a business. And the cost depends on where the community is. Obviously, the communities in Scottsdale are a little bit more expensive than if you would go to more of a Phoenix community, Central Phoenix community. It depends on the size of the apartment. It depends on the location sometimes of the apartment within the community. So all are those factors that drive the cost. Okay, so assisted living. When do you actually need to go and think about assisted living? Assisted living is really for those people that cannot perform activities of daily living. And Bernie talked a little bit about this. So what are the activities of daily living? Things that you and I take for granted. We get out of bed every morning, we go brush our teeth, we use the toilet, we take a shower, we feed ourselves, we eat, we take our medications. All those things are called activities of daily living. If one has problems performing any of those things, you need help. It might be a son or a daughter or a sister, someone that might come into the home and help you. There are companies out there that provide help on an hourly basis that you can hire and bring them into the home and help you do those things. But it comes a point where having somebody come into the home becomes cost prohibitive because you might need them 12 hours a day or 24 hours a day. Or it may become a point where your home is no longer safe because of the physical aspects of your home. There's stairs, your bathroom is not it's not secure enough, or you become a danger to yourself because of your cognitive capabilities. We had clients that have set things on fire on the stove because they don't realize the stove is on. So there's certain times where you become a danger to yourself or a danger to your home. And those are the times where you decide, okay, we definitely need to look into assisted living. In assisted living, you're really paying for two things. You're paying for your rent, your physical apartment, your physical room, but you also, most importantly, are paying for the care that you get. So there's someone there always providing you with the assistance that you need. Assisted living, unlike independent living that we talked about, is actually regulated by the state of Arizona. And is very much regulated. They come in every year and they look at the community and they look at the home and make sure that they're all providing the services they say they're provided, and they look at the little minute things. And you could actually look online and look at how well these communities are performing. We kind of went through this already, sort of when to consider assisted living. Many people that we work with actually wait too long. And then you are in a crisis situation. We work with clients sometimes that need to find a place for them within a matter of a day or 2 days. That's not where you want to be. You sort of want to say, okay, if I know that I'm getting worse and worse, and if I know that I have these signs, I can't really work on my checkbook anymore. I can't really seem to remember things, or there's the increased memory loss, or you see someone that is not taking care of themselves, not eating right. Those are really the signs to start thinking about this person needs help. Within the realm of assisted living, there are two main buckets. One bucket is the big communities like independent living. They're apartment-based type of communities. And these are some actual pictures. I don't know if you can see them really well, but these are actual pictures. So some of these are gorgeous too in assisted living. So there's these big communities, and there's also what we call the residential care homes. And the residential care homes, there's probably, I guarantee you, one in your neighborhood that you don't even know about. They're usually residential homes in neighborhoods that actually have gone and gotten their license to be assisted living. And they're licensed for a maximum of 10 residents. And what they do is they turn the home into, you know, into an assisted living home. They provide all the care. They're licensed to 3 levels of care. They provide all the care. They don't advertise in the front saying, hey, you know, we're an assisted living home. But they provide the care that you need more in a homey environment. In a community like this, you would rent a studio, you would rent a bedroom, you might even rent a 2-bedroom if there's a couple that would go into assisted living. There's a lot of amenities, there's activities, but really now you're talking about a population that is less functional because they do need the care. So you see a lot of wheelchairs, you see a lot of walkers, so they may not necessarily participate in activities. They provide 3 meals a day by law and snacks, and all of the homes and communities do that. The pricing between the homes and the communities are quite different. The communities, you're dealing with big business, so their pricing is very much set. And they will tell you a 1-bedroom is X, a 2-bedroom is X. And the care, they will assess you in terms of what care you need, and based on that care, they will give you a price. But it's very much very structured, and it's very little room for negotiation with a community. A home, you're dealing with a small business owner. Sometimes they're much more open to negotiating, depending on the type of case that you bring into them, and it's a homey environment versus an apartment living kind of environment. They provide the same kind of services in terms of the care of assisted activities of daily living. None of this, what we're talking about, like Steve said, none of these communities provide medical. Okay, that's important to know. And that's why Medicare does not cover the cost of assisted living, because it is not medical. It's non-medical. It's called custodial care. These are some of the pictures of the homes. There are over 1,500 homes in Maricopa County alone. So there's a lot, so that's why I'm saying there's a good probability that there's a home in your neighborhood, even though you probably don't know it. If you see a lot of cars parked in the front, it's probably a home. But these, again, are just like being in a regular house. There's a kitchen, they cook, they provide meals. You may have your own private bedroom, or you may share a bedroom depending on cost. We talked a little bit about this. What does assisted living cost? The main thing is it provides everything that independent living did, including 3 meals a day, but it also provides the care. It includes the care. And the cost of assisted living here in the Phoenix area is a wide range. It could be anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000. And the cost depends on many different things. Again, community versus home, the level of care that you need, the type of community that you choose. And so on average, we'd probably say the average cost of assisted living here in Phoenix is about $3,500. It also depends if you share a room, or you have your own private room, or you have your own studio. So sometimes we work with clients that may have a very low budget, and in that case, they would have to share a room with somebody else, which is perfectly fine. Sometimes with people that has cognitive issues, it's actually best to have a companion than being by themselves, because sometimes they get very anxious being by themselves. What is memory care? So if you drive around the valley, you may have noticed some communities are memory care only communities. And those are also licensed. They're licensed at the highest level of care. But those are particularly for people that have cognitive issues, Alzheimer's, or any other kinds of dementia. Primarily the people that that go into memory care are those that can no longer stay in regular assisted living. Why? Because of behavioral issues. And that is very common with the disease of Alzheimer's or any other, some dementias too. Sometimes you become combative, or, you know, verbally you start saying things that you never said before in your life, or you can become violent. You can become, for example, my father now yells in the middle of the night, and that is, for the other residents, of course, is disturbing. So those types of things, that's when you would think about memory care. And most people with advanced dementia and those kinds of things. The cost of memory care, of course, is higher than assisted living. It could be anywhere between $4,000 is actually very low. I would say now it's more like $5,000 to about $8,000. Again, non-medical, not covered by Medicare. In the realm of skilled nursing, so now skilled nursing, it is medical, hence nursing, and there's two types. One type is short-term, one type is long-term. Short-term is what happens when you go to the hospital, you break a hip, you got to go to rehab, and you're in there for like 3 weeks, and they send you home. Hopefully they'll send you home. Sometimes they say, no, you can't go home, you have to go to assisted living. But primarily what the objective is of rehab is to get you going again. Okay, long term, and that, by the way, is covered by Medicare under certain conditions. Most of the time is covered. Long term is when you're really, really, really sick, you actually need 24 hours medical care, but you're not quite at the hospital level. That's when you get into skilled nursing. It's called also a SNF. Not a place you want to be. Only go there if the doctor says that's the only thing. And that is very, very, very expensive. The cost of skilled nursing, if it comes out of your own pocket, is about $250 to $300 a day. And then the continuing care retirement communities, the CCRCs, are those communities that include everything that we just talked about. One difference, all of these communities that we talked about actually have a month-to-month kind of rental model. So you rent, you pay on a monthly basis, and if you don't like it, you give a 30 days notice and you move and you find somebody else. So in that sense, that's good. The CCRCs, as they're known in the industry, this is the buy-in model. So what you're doing is you're giving a large sum of money up front to these communities to move into their independent unit. And what that large sum of money does is basically look at it as a long-term care insurance policy. It basically says that the monthly fee that you're paying every month, because you're still going to pay a monthly fee even though you give this large sum of money up front, will never change. Even if your care needs progress and you might end up in their assisted living, you might end up in memory care, you might end up in their SNF, those costs, monthly costs, will never change. It's a way of buying security for yourself if you have that money up front that basically says, as long as you're in that community, your costs on a monthly basis will not going to change. There's plus and minuses to those models. Most people do not choose this because it kind of locks you into a community, and also because some of these buy-in communities, they could be quite a lot. I mean, some of them could be a couple $100,000 just to get in. Okay, and then finally, paying for long-term care. How do you pay for all that? I mean, some of these numbers are amazing. Private funds, asset liquidation, family assistance is the number one. Obviously, if you have long-term care insurance, oh my gosh, you are in good shape. A lot of the people that we work with a lot of the 80s generation. They do not have long-term care insurance because long-term care insurance back then didn't really exist. I know, it wasn't something that they bought. If you're a veteran, there's something called aid and attendance benefit that is specifically for long-term care that could be helpful. Medicare, we talked about that only for nursing homes under certain circumstances. Medicaid is called Altex here, Arizona Long-Term Care System. That's for the way I see that is actually a very, very, very good program. That's a safety net. That would be if you do have some money saved up and you spend it all, and guess what? Now, what do? You don't have any more money. Well, the government then comes in and takes over the payment for your home under certain circumstances. There are some people that turn their life insurance into long-term care benefits. That's another way. Reverse mortgages if you're staying in the home. And then there's always unsecured line of credits and loans and so on and so forth. So many people asked us, well, what do we do at this point in our lives? And there's really, what we say is there's basically 5 steps to planning ahead. One is legal matters, which Bernie talked about, everything that he said, get all your legal papers, think about what you want to do. One is your financial matters. So if you think you are, like for me, my whole family has Alzheimer's, I'm like, okay, I better plan on this. So think about how you would pay for long-term care. We went out and bought long-term care insurance because for us, at this point in our lives, is very affordable. So we went in and we did it. Family matters, talk with your family, so close friends, about what your wishes are and what you want them to be, especially now that you're a sound mind and you can make those decisions for yourself. Get educated, so think about what we just talked about today and get the big picture. And then always, and this is a personal favorite of mine because I went with him with my parents, they had a house full of stuff for the last 40 years. And when something happened with my dad, we had to go in there, downsize. We had to get rid of a lot of stuff. So simplify your life, donate, gift, sell your stuff that has been accumulating for the last 40 years, and think about that. So I think that's it. Any questions?
I have at least one.
Yes, sir.
So what if one spouse is at one stage and another spouse is at another stage? How does that fit into the mix as a general rule?
Well, this is a great example of your parents.
Yeah. Well, my mom, my mom still lives with me because she's completely independent. She still drives. And then my dad is in a care home. And my mom always said to me, I would always go with your dad wherever he goes. But then when she went in to see what it was like in his home and how he has progressed, she's like, no, this is not the place for me. So she's lucky that she has, a place with us and she enjoys her grandchildren and all that. But there's certain scenarios that we have worked with clients in that situation. The best scenario would be if they can go in together for a little bit of time into assisted living, and it might be too little for one and it might be too much for the other, but at least there's like a happy medium for a little while. The problem is that one of them is going to get worse. So what we did for this one particular couple that I remember is they went into assisted living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and then she was the one with dementia. And when she progressed, she went into the memory care of that particular community. He then downsized into a studio. So it was a way of them still kind of staying together, but they were still separated, but they're staying together in the same community and also managing the costs, because her costs went up, his costs went down. But it all depends on the situation, and that's a tough one. We had another couple that they wanted to stay together, and they went into a care home, and they rented 2 rooms with a Jack and Jill bathroom connecting them. And I can't remember, I think it was the husband unfortunately had Parkinson's, so he required a lot of care. She did not. So they had a little sitting room outside. It was a very nice setup, and she would come out and sit and visit with people while he was getting the care that he needed.
It's usually a very personal decision. Some couples really want to stay together, no matter what, through thicken blood and right. So it's a very personal decision. I guess if you look at it from an analytical standpoint, it really comes down to cost. It could come down to the emotional and sometimes even physical turmoil of being together. Because if you're together, typically the healthier one becomes the caregiver, and that continues even in an assisted living home, because the spouse generally looks to the other spouse as the caregiver. I think in our situation here, we saw that. We saw my mother-in-law was just mentally, emotionally, physically drained. And it wasn't until he made that transition into a care facility that she became the spouse again and became to regain her health. It's interesting. Sometimes the person with the either cognitive or physical disability that depends on the spouse as the caregiver, the spouse actually gets worse from a health standpoint faster. So those are all the kind of the factors you got to kind of play with. If they're both sort of around the same level of care requirements and health requirements, it might be okay. But if they're drastically different, you may want to separate just because of that emotional and psychological effect of if you're still highly cognitively functioning, to be in a situation where you're in a group of individuals that are less functioning. So it's a very personal decision.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate
Thank you, everybody.
getting involved. Yeah.